Hello everyone, welcome to another live stream here at my YouTube channel. My name is Christina Werner and we're going to have some fun tonight with some dye inks. We're going to watercolor with dye inks, and I thought it would be kind of fun to recreate a card that I made with a new background stamp that just came out yesterday. Hold on, it's like caught on it. There we go. This is, well, I'll just pull all this out. This is all one big bundle. This is the Pretty Posies bundle. I've got it all linked down below. If you go to that link that's in the video description, that very top link that says visible supply list, you'll see it right there. So in this bundle, there is a background stamp. That's what we're going to be using tonight for all of our painting. And then there's this 4x6 stamp set. So some of the flowers that are on the background. And then we've got dies that cut out the flowers in the stamp sets, as well as a nice oval frame. You'll see that on a card I'm going to show you in a minute. And then there's a fourth product in this set, and it's a stencil. And this is a 6x9 stencil set, and it's really fun to work with. You can really build a whole background from using the stencils. But I really wanted to do some watercoloring because I was thinking, you know, I'm going to show you all these cards I made with this bundle. And of all the cards that I made with this bundle, this was the one that I had the most questions about. Like, how did you do that? So here we go. So here is one where it has the stencil. There's, oh gosh, I think there's 5 stencils. Is that right? Yeah, there's 5 stencils that create the actual pattern. And then I used this stamp set for the greeting and then the die for the little oval. And I was thinking I could recreate this card, but we'll have the background be the watercolor. So we'll do it a little bit differently than the example I'm about to show you. Here's one where I stenciled the flowers and put that behind that thanks. And these are also stenciled flowers. Here's one with just really simple die cut, or I should say gold embossed and then die cut flowers. And then this is the watercolor card that I had quite a few questions about, just about how I did the painting and how I use the Concord and 9th inks to do all of the painting. So I thought I would go ahead and do that tonight. We'll do a little bit of watercoloring, but also I just had the thought, maybe you want to see the stencil instead. So bear with me. I'm gonna put up a quick poll here. Let me see if I can pull this up. You're gonna see my keyboard here for a moment because I've got to, maybe you won't see it too much. I've got to type in the poll. I was just thinking we could do this either way, really. All right, let me put a little poll in here. Watercolor background or stencil ink blending. And then I'll just do whatever you guys want me to do tonight. All right, let's start that poll. I don't think anyone who's watching on a TV would see the poll, but those of you who are on mobile devices or on your computer and you're watching, you have the chat open, you will see the poll pop up in the live chat. I believe that's where you'll see it. So if you don't have the chat open, you'll want to open that chat and you'll be able to do the poll. I'll just sit here and talk for a minute. These stamps are actually, I should say, the dies for like these dies right here. You could try popping out some flowers on here because I think they're about the same size, but you're not going to be able to actually die cut the images from the background. You'd have to stamp and die cut these, and then you could pop them on top on the background. So that's how you can use those two together. All right, it's looking like the watercolor background is at about 75%. So I'm going to end the poll and we're going to go with the watercolor background, my plan that I had for today. So here's what that watercolor background looks like. And when I did this initially, I did a full, you know, like the background. But I was thinking if we're going to kind of recreate it as like this card design, we only need what the front of the card, like that size. We only need that size. So I thought that'd be kind of nice. Let's see here. Looking in the chat. Okay, we're going for the watercolor. Perfect. Okay. All right, I'm going to put the rest of these that are from the bundle, I'm going to put it back in my little storage pocket, and we will get to stamping. And I'm going to keep this card out just so I can kind of remind myself what I did. Okay, and this was on some cold press watercolor paper. Oh, and I think I used my last piece of cold press that's out here. I used that last week, so I'm going to grab it from my stash. In fact, I could probably cut down a larger piece of watercolor paper since I want it to be specifically that size that's on an A2 card front. Looks like I might even have a scrap that I might be able to use in here. Oh, I do. Lovely. So this is Fabriano Artistico Extra White. This is in the cold press version, and I have this little scrap in here. So I'll just cut this in half and we'll stamp this one. Should be easy enough. Okay, perfect. It's 9 inches wide. So that'll be the perfect size to do our little background stamp. And then I can stash that back in the watercolor paper. Thank you so much, Dorothy. I hope you love it. All right, I'm putting my watercolor paper back. Actually, I should grab a new 5x7. Oh dear, I don't have any 5x7 Fabriano. Oh, I guess I'm going to be ordering some more of those 5x7 blocks, because that would be very tragic if I didn't have it, right? Do you guys remember years ago when I just kept finding pads of Arches watercolor paper in my craft room? It was like I had, like they were multiplying. They were multiplying like bunnies. It was kind of funny. Okay. We're going to do the stamping of the Pretty Posies background. I'll just get out my MISTI for this. Some of you also might remember that on this MISTI, the little metal hinge inside was popping out. I just gently tapped that in with, what was it? Scissors, I think. I just tapped that back in, and my MISTI seems to be fine again. And so I'm just going to keep using it because I really do like the black MISTI. Okay, since I'm going to be doing this background stamp, well, I guess I could just put it right there. Yeah, we'll just put it right there and just stamp the 1/2, like the part that's on it. Joy is asking, will distress watercolor cardstock by Ranger work? Yes, you could use distress watercolor cardstock. I think it works pretty well. It's not my favorite. I don't like the texture of that paper, but I think that's just a personal preference. I don't think it can handle quite as much water as sometimes I like to do for my watercolor background or watercolor paintings. So it's not my personal preference, but I know a lot of people who love it. So if that's what you have and you love using it, I say go for it. Francis is asking, would any watercolor paper work? Is there any difference between this cardstock and distress watercolor cardstock? Well, like I just said, this is Fabriano Artistico Extra White. It's specifically made for watercoloring. I believe it's cotton based, and the texture is just really nice. It's pretty thick. It's pretty substantial as well. Whereas the Ranger or Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor Cardstock, I think, is a little bit thinner, and it has texture on the front of it. I feel like it's not like really soft texture. It's almost like a pebbled texture, like orange peel. It reminds me of orange peel, if that makes any sense. But it's completely up to you. Okay, I'm gonna do heat embossing on this one, so I'm gonna do a little bit of anti-static powder. Alicia says no poll appeared. You may have, it was only up for a little bit. You may have missed it. If you're watching this and it's a little bit behind, you might have missed it, but it was up there for a minute. Okay, I'm going to use, let's see. I think, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use an embossing ink or if I just want to use Versamark. I'll just use Versamark. Tabitha says, does the stencil fit over the background stamp? No. I had to manipulate the background, the stencil a little bit so that, well, I don't know. That's a good question. After I stamp this, let's break out the stencil and check. I'm pretty sure I had to move some of the flowers to make the stencil work. So I don't think that they work together directly. But let's test that when I'm done here. All right. Run this over that. Susie says, I think the back side of the distressed watercolor is smooth. Yeah, it is smoother, but it still, it has like this, I don't know, it feels like it's like a stamped texture, you know, like it has like a linen-y texture, but it's not linen. It's interesting. It is more smooth, however. Okay. I'll break out some gold embossing powder. I'm going to keep this background stamp in my MISTI just a little bit longer, just in case I need to re-stamp this at all. Hoping I don't. All right, and I'm glad there's a little bit of non-stamped area on this one end, so I have somewhere to hold it. I'm also trying to not get embossing powder absolutely everywhere, all over my work surface, because I was doing some some heat embossing. Oh gosh, when was it? About a week and a half ago, I guess. And I got white embossing powder absolutely everywhere. It was all over my lap. It was all over my work surface. I have never had so much embossing powder all over me. And how long have I been doing this? I think 20 years I've been making cards like this. And I could not believe it, that I had so much embossing powder all over me. What's the difference between hot and cold press, and which do you prefer? Hold that thought. I'm going to use my heat tool to melt this gold embossing powder, and then I will explain that while we prep our board for painting. My heat tool is, first time it's been used today, so I've got to warm it up a bit. Before I bring it to my project. Okay. All right, here we go. There is that gold outline on all the flowers. And I'm going to tape this down to a board for all of my painting. So hot and cold pressed watercolor paper. This is how I have always understood it. At first glance, the major difference between hot and cold press is the texture. Cold press watercolor paper generally has a little bit of a rough texture to it, whereas hot press watercolor paper is more smooth. So it all comes down to the way it's actually created. When they're pressing the paper to make it really flat, the hot press refers to using like a hot plate to press it down. And they can also, I think, when it presses a little bit more strongly, maybe with more pressure. I think maybe the heat of it, you know, touches the wet pulp from the paper process. When it presses it down, I think when it's hot, it presses it so it's a little bit thinner. It feels more thin. It can be the same GSM, it can be the same weight, but it might appear thinner or feel thinner in your hands. And because of this, because it's a little bit thinner, hot press paper cannot handle quite as much water as cold press can. Cold press, I think of cold press paper as being like a fluffy towel. Think of it like a really big fluffy like bath towel that you would use when you're getting out of the shower. Big and fluffy, very absorbent. It's going to absorb tons of water. Whereas you can think of your hot press watercolor paper as maybe just like a regular cotton fabric, much more smooth. It still absorbs water, but it's not going to be able to absorb as much water. So therefore it cannot hold as much water before breaking down. Because if you've ever done any watercoloring, you probably know that there comes a point where you've just added too much water to your paper and the paper starts to disintegrate. It just starts falling apart. And that means you basically reach the point where the paper can no longer handle moisture. So I find that, you know, if I'm going to be doing like big, huge watercolor washes, doing lots and lots of color, that is a time when I would specifically use cold press watercolor paper, because just like that bath towel, it's going to be able to absorb more water, and it's also going to keep things like it'll stay wet longer as well. Like a damp towel, bath towel, takes longer to dry than a t-shirt. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh dear, Elena. Good morning. Can you say 2:15 in the morning isn't good morning territory? That is so early. Well, hopefully this will make it worth it. We'll see. Oh, that's a good way to put it, JB. Think of cold press like having goosebumps when you're cold. Yeah, that's a good way to remember that cold press paper is going to have more bumps and like rough texture. Okay. I'm going to pause and get this stamp out of my MISTI before I move on so that it's ready for later for when I need my grading. Okay. And we also wanted to compare it to the stencil. So let's take a look at that. I'm just putting this down. All right, we'll tip this over for a minute, and I'm just going to put that right there. And I'm going to grab the stencil set. You know what? I'm pretty sure I moved some flowers around when I was designing it. And I thought to myself, yeah, you're not going to be able to use the stencils with the background stamp, but let's check just to be sure. Because who knows? Oh. Y'all, we're in business. It is the same. I'm so smart. I'm smarter than I ever thought I was. I thought for sure I'd move things quite a bit. You know what? It does look like maybe a few little things have shifted, but for the most part, it's not so bad. I think it's pretty close. So that would probably also mean that like this flower would be in the right, where is it? That one right there. Yep. Look at that. You know, I didn't even think to put those together because I didn't think they matched, but they certainly do. Learn something new every day, right? It's kind of a fun little thing to discover. I don't think I even thought about doing it that way. I was like, I think I'll want to paint it. So I want it as a stamped background too. That's like all I was thinking about. Okay. Coming back to our watercoloring. So last week I did watercoloring with Distress Ink re-inkers. And this time I'm going to use Concord and 9th inks. And we're just going to smush them right down onto the pad. Now most dye inks you can watercolor with. How successful you are watercoloring with them really depends on the formulation of the ink. The Concord and 9th ink, as well as, gosh, SSS Stamps Positively Saturated. I'm trying to think of any other ink lines that I'm familiar with that are like this. I think the new fresh dye inks from Altenew are also like this, where the inks are not permanent once they're dry on your paper, that they can be reactivated with water. Those types of inks that are not permanent will watercolor better versus some dye inks that are permanent when they're dry. So I'm pretty sure, like SSS Stamps old ink line, they're like transitioning it out. That one happens to be waterproof. You can paint with it. I've done it in the past, but you don't have as much time to kind of work with it because once it's dry in the paper, it's permanent. It's not moving. Whereas using these other inks that are, that can be reactivated, it's much easier to paint with them. All right, I've got 4 colors. I'm using Buttercup, and I'm going to smush down Juniper. Then I've got Fig. I love Fig. It's one of my favorites. As well as Dragonfruit. Yes, Hero Art's water reactive. In fact, they have them labeled as water reactive. Okay, I'm going to use a nice big brush here. I'm going to do an under layer or under painting. I like to do this quite a bit. If you've seen any of my watercolor videos, you probably have seen something like this. I'm going to spray my watercolor paper, get a little bit of water going, and then I'm going to get some water. Oh, I think there was some blue or green in my brush or something because it made the yellow not quite as bright. That's okay. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to start putting down quite a bit of color in a couple spots. Clean off my brush and then come in with some other spots of color. Got 2 other colors to get on here, so I don't want to fill this in completely. Clean off my brush quite a bit. I'm not sure exactly what the size of this brush is. It just says 0 on it. But I know it's not the usual size 0 round brush because that would be much smaller. Okay. So this is actually going to dry back quite a bit. And I want that yellow to be more concentrated. So I'm gonna, like this pink, whew, that's intense. In fact, it's more intense than what I did on my original painting. So we'll see how well this works. But also because it's reactive with water, like you can add to it and get things moving again. Because of that, I think I'll be able to lift some of the really, really dark areas and add color to it. Okay. Yeah, let's get a little more yellow in here. I just want just a little more yellow. 0 mop brush, that sounds about right. Okay, I'm going to hit this with my heat tool because we're live here. I think if I wasn't live, I probably would let this dry a little bit before I go to my heat tool, mostly because all of these lines are heat embossed and I don't want to run the risk of reheating it and then melting all of that embossing powder into the paper, which can totally happen. It happens with watercolor paper a lot. So I'm going to keep my heat tool moving quite a bit and not have it as close to the paper as I normally would. I'm going to have it a little bit further away. And just keep it moving. I love what's happening right here. I also love this right here. I love the yellow and the purple. This would be pretty just leaving it on its own like this. That is basically dry enough. Yeah, we're good. Get another paper towel that I can use. And now I'm going to start bringing in some color and defining the different floral edges. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. A size 2 is generally, or size 2 or 4 is generally what I like to use when I'm painting like images like this. Let me see if I can find one. Size 4 seems a little bit big. I'm going to look for my size 2 brush wherever I stashed it. Here we go. So here's a size 2. And basically what I'm going to do, let's look at the original. You can see this background is much more pale. Like this is some pretty intense color. But basically I had a few different types of flowers. I had a yellow to green, I had a yellow to pink, and I also had a pink to purple. I don't think I ever did any green to purple, but we could explore that as well. But basically what I'm doing is I just want like half of the flower to be one color and then the other half is the other color. See how I did that? Like there's more purple over on this side and then coming into the pink. So that's generally what I'm doing. I'm going to leave the background as is. And the color of the background also kind of informs me on what color my flower is going to be. Like over here, I'm not going to be able to walk that back to a yellow and green. It's probably going to be a pink and purple. So I can just pick up some of this purple and I can just start to bring that in right there in the center. Get a little bit of water and I can kind of get that spread out a little bit. And then I can even grab more purple and dab that right there. Get a little bit of a more intense shade. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I can just let it kind of fade out about like that. I'm basically just defining the flower so that it stands out from the background. Okay, you guys know what my palette looks like, so I'm going to focus on the florals on my camera. I'm missing some. Oh, Pam is asking what colors or paints I'm using. These are inks from Concord and Ninth. I'm using Dragonfruit, that's the pink, Fig, Juniper, and Buttercup. And this is the new Pretty Posies background stamp that just came out yesterday. All right, so I love how there's this like color transition happening right here on this one. So I think I'm just going to kind of mimic that. I'm going to bring in a little bit of pink. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of the purple. And I'm just going to grab some water, kind of encourage those inks to kind of mix a little bit. And then down here at the other end, we've got our green shade. You can kind of mix up into it. I'm not going to worry about the centers quite yet. But I am going to grab a little bit of this pink. Just get that corner wet once again. Okay. Looks like we're going to do maybe like a purple to the green. In fact, I need more of my Juniper on my little palette here. Yeah, I think you could leave it just as is with the under painting. I think it looks great. All right, we'll bring in some of the green over here. Seriously, I think Juniper, such one of my favorite colors in the Concord and Ninth line. And like I said on my original card, I don't think I had any of the purple, the fig, mixing into the green. And I'm like, oh, I totally missed an opportunity because that's really pretty. I really like how that looks. Maybe I'll grab some of that Dragonfruit and I'll have it down here at the bottom and it can kind of transition over. I'm really just getting the colors to mix a little bit more. You can add a little bit of color and then just get some water on your brush and kind of massage the edge. Looks like I'm painting this one. Let's do this flower in the yellow to green. Why not? Looks like it wants what it wants to do. Grab a little bit of that green, get it more intense to define the edge of the flower. I'm going to bring that down here. Cheryl's asking about using the C9 reinkers for this. You definitely can. I find it just a little bit easier just to pick it up from a palette with the ink pad smushed. I think it allows, you know, I feel like I have a little bit more control over how much color I'm picking up. But you definitely could do exactly that if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to smush my yellow ink pad some more because I need more yellow. And I think I'll just do, we'll do yellow. I don't know where I got this like blue shade from. It's interesting. I guess maybe it's that Juniper, but just very pale. So I'll bring this down and kind of mix these colors together. Okay. Let's see here. Right here with this, it's going like pink to yellow, so I'm just going to lean into that. In fact, maybe I'll have it be a little bit of the purple to pink to yellow, just because I want it to have a little bit more of a transition from that background. Like the background's very pink right here, so maybe I'll add a little bit of purple so that it really defines the edge. Then I can go straight to just the pink, and then we'll finish it off with the yellow right up here. And I'm going to try to get quite a bit of yellow painted, and then I can start to bring in that pink and transition the two. I'm kind of like almost massaging the paper a little bit, trying to get those colors to mix. I'm using just water on my brush right now, just adding more water. Just trying to get the colors to mix a little bit. Okay, so like I said, I'm taking cues from my background that's already painted. I'm going to go ahead and get this down here. I kind of like that purple to yellow, so I'm just going to go with that. I think it's really pretty. I never would have thought to have the purple transition to the yellow. In fact, maybe I'll have a little bit of green down on this other side, just to have a little bit of a transition there. Get this flower right here. I'll just do purple. I'm going to be cutting this down quite a bit, so really I don't need to worry about all the edges, but just so I can get a good idea of how it's going to look, that's why I'm doing it this way. Okay, this one right here, I guess I'll have it be, I'll just have it be a yellow. Like I said, it's a corner, it'll probably get cut off anyway. All right, there's a little bit of a harsh line right here, so I'm going to come in with just a wet brush. See if I can massage that line a little bit. Get the colors moving a little bit more. All right, I love this yellow to this purple, so I'm going to get some more yellow on my palette here. Lisa's asking, when did you learn how to watercolor? You make it look so easy. Actually, you make everything look so easy. Well, thank you. I took a watercolor class in college, but I didn't really do a ton of watercoloring until I started watercoloring on cards, actually. And I think there's something to be said about, you know, working on a card because it's just a smaller space. Like you don't have to fill out like a whole 11 by 14 piece of watercolor paper, you know, you're only painting a little bit and it's, you know, low risk, you know what I'm talking about? So I really loved it. And also, I think when you're doing things like this where you're just mixing a bunch of color, I think it's really fun to, you know, you can just play with inks and things like that. Okay, hold on, I'm going to grab a little more that purple. So this is years of experience. I think I really started watercoloring on cards probably, gosh, maybe 2014? That sounds about right. All right, we've got a little bit of the green to purple right here, so I'm just going to embrace that. Grab some more of that fig. I think I might need to squish my fig ink pad down soon. Yeah, the colors on this one are much more intense in comparison to, you know, that card example. I'm not mad about it. All right, we'll do a little bit of that fig going off the side here. And that is the same flower. Hi, Dana. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of this transition where we have the Dragonfruit. Oh, I just got like a water droplet right there. Oh, well. I'm going to do the Dragonfruit, and then this petal is going to be more yellow, and then maybe I'll have it go to purple up here. Do you guys hear my cat meowing? He's down there just meowing his little head off. I think it's because he can hear me talking up here. If I'm in my craft room and I'm quiet and I don't have any music on, he's perfectly content downstairs. But the minute he can hear me talking, he's like, what's happening? I can tell someone's up there. Thanks, Dana. get a little bit of the purple. I need more fig. Just smushing that down onto my palette here. I'm sad to lose some of the really pretty color transitions that are within the flowers, but I think this looks really nice too. I think those kind of mimic each other. It's kind of fun. Okay, let's get some of this dragon fruit right up here, and we'll have it transition to purple. This is one of my favorite ways to cut like watercolor backgrounds that can be a little bit abstract. They don't need to be realistic. Oh, thank you, Molly. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. It was one of my favorite cards to create with the March release, for sure. One of the things that I've, realized with having my own line of product is that, I'm going to make, somewhere from 12 to 15 cards a month using just my product. And if I want to do some of my favorite techniques like watercolor like this, like an outline background or whatever, I've got to design the stamps for it. Donna, that's too funny. Donna says, confession. It's about that when I see your Instagram reels and the kitties aren't first, I'm disappointed. They are quite the characters, that is sure. That's for sure. All right, this one's kind of transitioning from yellow to green, so I'm just going to lean into that. Look at that. That totally like ate away. Ooh, we should try that. Did I do that on the original? I did. All right, we're going to go yellow, and we'll have it transition to the green. So I'll get some more of that juniper. We can even have a little bit of a purple there at the top. That looks pretty good. Just let that sit there for a minute. I think I want to do, let's see, we'll do the purple to yellow again. I'm just going with what I happen to paint on the background. Seems to be working better. So after I have my flowers basically painted, I'm going to go through and paint the centers, and I'm just going to try to paint them in a color that contrasts whatever the flower color is. Grab some yellow, have that in right here, and it's going to transition to that purple. So mainly I'm just trying to define the edges of all the flowers. I'll grab a little bit more fig right here. I think I'll grab some dragon fruit. Get that pink in there as well. And this one's like very purple forward. I'm not sure particularly why, but okay. Let's get that right there. All right, now let's do the centers of the flowers. I think most of them are probably going to end up being purple or magenta. I guess I could do the centers in yellow as well. I'm changing it up a little bit and painting it a little bit differently than the first card example. Just getting these just sort of started. Because the embossing lines are raised, it really does make it easy to paint all these in without having to worry about lines or whatever. Okay, any other centers? No, I think I've got them all. Okay, I'm gonna hit this with my heat tool. I've got like a water droplet here. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna add more water droplets anyway. I just realized I never painted this flower down here and it's bugging me. So I'm gonna at least cover up this little spot with the white peeking out. And then I'll have the purple coming in from the bottom. Okay, that's better. So interesting how I've got that like whole water line there. Okay, now, oh, that doesn't even look like I got the center of that one. Let's put a center in that one. Okay, there we go. All right, let's get these last few spots. Okay, so I'm going to get more like water droplet looks. They're like right here and here and this one up here by using a spray bottle in the palm of my hand. And then I'm just dropping water droplets all over. And I've noticed that, you know, with distress inks, you get that like kind of like bleached water droplet look like almost immediately. But with regular dye inks like these inks from Conquer the Night, you need like a minute or two to really let it soak in. So I'm just gonna let it soak in. Also, like tipping the board back and forth gets the water moving within those little droplet puddles, and that'll do a little bit as well. All right, I'm just gonna let that sit for just a moment. I'm not worried about anything that's right on the edges because it's going to be cut off. I'm not going to worry about it. Hi, Donna. Yes, this is Picking Peonies on my nails. That's the new color from Dazzle Dry. All right, I got a lot of water on that flower. I hope I didn't completely ruin it. Like this and just pick up. Wow, that's a lot of color it's picking up. Okay, so it just gives it more like a splotchy look. I think it looks really cool. All right, something that I did on the original is I splattered on a bunch of the ink colors and then also splattered on some gold. I think I'm gonna skip splattering on the ink colors, but I do wanna do the gold. So, zoom out here for a moment. I'm gonna move my palette off to the side. I have my Christmas watercolor set from Iuile Watercolors with my favorite color, which is Star. I actually have it in here twice. I've got two pans of it because I love it so much. So I've been using this one right here though, so I'm going to use that one first. And this is going to take a minute for the paint to kind of mix up and be the right consistency that I want to paint with. So I'm just going to let this air dry. I'll probably hit it with my heat tool a little bit before I actually do my splatter, but for now I'm just going to sit here and swirl my brush in that gold paint to try to get it more of like a heavy cream consistency, like a heavy whipping cream. That's the consistency you want. I think it works out really well to do it this way. So when I do paint splatter, I like to round my brush off the edge of an acrylic block, and that gives me a little bit more control over where the splatter is going. So I'm going to do that today as well. While I'm doing this, maybe I can multitask with my other hand. I'm going to find an acrylic block. Okay, that's starting to get nice and thick. Thanks, Dana. Oh, I just spilled some over this edge. That's okay. That probably just means I need to get going here. Okay, still a little bit wet, so I'm going to hit with my heat tool. Just from the water droplets and everything. So what I mean by going off the edge of an acrylic block is I take the paint and I just scrape it off my brush. I've got the block tilted as well, so it'll encourage the paint to go toward the center of the block and not run off the edge. But I'm gonna add a little more water to my gold paint. Basically, I'm just trying to get a nice droplet of gold paint. By the way, this paint from Iuile Watercolors, this is the color Star. I think it matches the gold matte cardstock from Concord and Ninth and Simon Says Stamp, and it also matches the gold embossing powder from Brutus Monroe that I used today, which is gilded. Okay, so I'm just gonna run this off the edge here and kind of flick my brush, and it kind of keeps all the paint splatter to just right in front of me. Like I'm looking out here, I've only got a little bit of paint splatter over here on my left side. Everything else is mostly just on my project. I think it really helps me direct all the splatter. And you still get that like really random splatter look, but without all of the mess. You know what I'm saying? Nerdy Girl's saying she wants the stamp, so pretty, but it seems like the kind of thing where a stamp platform would be necessary. I think it's definitely helpful. I don't think you have to have it to use background stamps like this, but I think it's definitely helpful if you wanted to do that. Otherwise you would need like a really big acrylic block to put it on. I guess you could press your paper into the stamp as well. You could try that too. All right, I'm gonna let that air dry for a minute while I just clean up my palette. It has all that ink on it. I'm gonna have to use a couple baby wipes. I just went to Costco and picked up more baby wipes this weekend. I think the last time I bought baby wipes was a year ago. Like the big huge box of baby wipes from Costco. The inks that I used today from Concord and Ninth are Dragonfruit, Fig, Juniper, and Buttercup. All right. I'm just going to let this air dry more, and I guess we need to decide if we're going to create this card. So like just the center area would be covered up by the greeting. In fact, we could even maybe, ooh, I just had a thought. What if the greeting was like the white here was vellum, the greeting was stamped in gold, and then I had a matte gold frame. That could be really pretty. Or I can just do a direct copy of my original card, and I'd cut it out and put like a wide white frame on it. Kind of makes me think it looks like a picture, right? Like a portrait or something. So, yeah, I can't decide. The thing about this one is, I mean, the amount of the background that's covered up by the greeting is less in this example. This one is covered up more. I'm intrigued by the vellum idea. Let's go with the vellum idea, because I think it could be really interesting. Okay, I'm going to let that continue to air dry, and I'm going to go grab some vellum. I happen to have some vellum that's on the thicker side, and I want to say I bought it from some like random website 5 million years ago. It says it's Whirlwind Papers, translucent vellum. Every single sheet has a sticker on it, but it's like, oh, sorry. It's really thick. Like, it's some thick vellum. But because of that, it makes it really easy, you know, because a lot of times I would double up on the sheets of vellum to make it the right, you know, opacity, so it would block out what's behind it. But with this thickness, it works really well. Yeah, I could possibly make it 5 by 7. We could combine the two ideas. I think that's not a bad idea. All right, I'm just cutting this down to a more manageable size for all of the stamping and die cutting. Let's see, is that going to be the right size? Oh yeah, we're good. That'll be a good size. All right, so I'm going back to my MISTI. And I really need to move these paintbrushes because I think I'm going to like hit them with the door of my MISTI if I'm not careful. Okay. Okay, where'd my stamps go? Here they are. So now I'm going to be using the Pretty Posies stamp set. I was just using the background, and I'm going to use the stamp set. My stamp is stained pink because that's the color of ink I used on this before. All right, got my Versamark right here. I'm going to prep this with anti-static powder. Get some nice Versamark ink on there. Really coat the stamp. And then just kind of like walk my fingertips over it. Oh, thank you, Lori. Okay. And that same gold embossing powder. It's the color Gilded from Brutus Monroe. Oh, that's going to be really pretty on the vellum. I really like that idea. Andrea's saying, she says, do the flowers in the Pretty Posies set she's using now match up with the background stamp? You can't use them directly because on the background stamp the flowers are overlapping, and on the regular stamps they're not overlapping, but the background stamp does match up with the stencils. We discovered that. It was cold pressed paper. so pretty. That gold on the vellum. Stop it. That is so good. I love that so much. Just grabbing a baby wipe to clean off my stamp. The triangle thing in my embossing powder is called a triangle tray. A few different companies sell them, but I love it because it's the perfect little scoop for my embossing powder container. Okay. Now we can do some die cutting. And I need gold cardstock. Let me see if I've got my gold cardstock out already. I do. Let's see. I have like all these scraps in the front. I'm like, is there anything that's going to be the right size? I save everything. Ooh, this one might be just the right size. Let's see. All right. Gotta grab the dies. Oh, I think it's going to be the perfect size. So the outer oval's on the vellum, and then the frame is on the gold. Perfect. All right, and just because I might be able to use that gold on something else, when I cut, I'm going to make sure I use a cleaner plate on top that won't leave impressions on the gold. I have ink all over my hand, and I just noticed. All right, I can also cut out this one at the same time. So let's see here. That looks about centered. Actually, you know what? I will cut this one separate because I'm afraid that I might need to cut it twice because that vellum is very thick. Oh, thank you, Andrea. Oh, I love this little itty bitty gold frame. Love it so much. It's going to be beautiful. All right, so now I'm going to cut this one. I'm going to put my metal shim back in to my die cutting sandwich. I took it out for the gold because I find that the gold cuts really easily and it doesn't need it. Okay, that looks pretty even. Oh, that cut beautifully. Oh, I love that. Okay. So now I'll put my dies back away. And since we're kind of combining those two card designs, I need to cut some gold frames for our card. I don't think that size will fit. Let's see. I'm going to be using my thin frames dies, and we're going to make it a 5x7 card. So I need to do, well, let's see if I have enough space on my watercolor painting for that same thing. This is the outer frame that I need to use. Oh, I think it'll be fine. Oh, it's going to be close, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to cut the gold out of that same frame so that I can just, you know, puzzle piece my watercolor painting inside. And I'm going to have to cut a new sheet of gold paper because all of my scraps are too small. Okay. And then I'll have even more scraps to put in. I just like save all of this gold. Because sometimes you need just like a little gold heart or something like that. So I'll save my little oval as well. Who knows? I might use it. All right, and then I'm going to cut this frame. I'm going to take my metal shim out again. And then I'll just run this through my die cut machine. And it's going to cut that little itty bitty frame. Lovely. So all I need is this little guy. I can put these two back with my gold cardstock stash, and I can save them for another project. Okay, so using that same frame, we need to cut our watercolor piece, but it is still drying. I'm gonna hit it with my heat tool. It's got like one spot that's not dry, or maybe a couple. It needs to be completely dry so I can die cut it. Okay, is that dry? Okay, it's dry. All right, I'll remove it from the board. I love all that purple. It's so much more saturated than the first time I did, you know, that background like that. I love it so much. Putting that hardboard away. And now I'm going to cut this out just like that. And because I'm paranoid about that ink not being completely dry, I'm trimming off some paper, and I'm going to put that protecting my plate. And I'm also going to swap my plates again, go back to my really dirty used plate on top. And I'll put my metal shim back in. Generally, watercolor paper does cut fairly easy, but just to be safe. Ooh, I'm glad I did it. Do you see that? There's just a little bit of that ink showing. Okay, so now, well, let's see. Do I have any ink on my die? I don't think I do. So I can put my die back in its storage pockets. Thank you for your service. If I wanted to save this little frame to use on something, I absolutely could, but I don't plan to use it on anything, so that's going to be discarded. All I need is that center area. And a 5x7 card base, which I'm almost out of 5x7 card bases that are already pre-folded. I think I've only got 6 left. Okay. So, and then this is going to go right on there. Oh, I forgot. The original card had the gold on the outside too. Oh well, we won't worry about it. Actually, I might have the gold already cut. That's the 5x7 frame. Do I? Oh no, it's just pieces. Oh well. We won't do the outer one. Okay, so this is just going to be adhered down, and then I can put the frame on after. Using some Tombow Xtreme adhesive. It is super, super strong. So I love it for adhering stuff like this. Make sure my card is opening the right way. And then I can just get this centered. All right, and once I already have that down, then I can just add a little line of glue around the outer edge, and then I can just put my frame down right on it. So I'm letting the glue kind of skip a little bit because I don't need glue along every single little bit. But I'm trying to stay as close to the edge of the watercolor paper as possible so that I won't have any like glue squidging out, as my friend Debbie Hughes says, from underneath the die, the die cut frame. Okay. So because this was cut with the same frame, it matches up perfectly. There we go. Just kind of holding that down a little bit. Pam says, I've never gotten a metal shim to work. Always seems too thick for going through. It might be that your particular die cutting machine is really, really tight. Maybe you don't need it. Okay, and then when we come to adhere this one, oh, that was a good choice. I really like that. Okay, where are my tweezers? All right, so I'm just adding some dots of glue along this little edge here. Kind of pressing that down, making sure it's where I want it. And then I'm going to put a heavy weight on it, a paperweight. Okay, so on the original card, it did have the gold on the outer edge and the inner. I'm trying to decide if I want to do that or not. I could cut the outer one as well. I'm trying to decide. It does really finish it off, doesn't it? Maybe I should. I've got to wait for this to dry anyway. And I do have that gold cardstock already cut. Why not? Now it makes me sad about cutting this up in that top corner, because if I would have cut it in the center, I could just use that same piece. Oh well. I do have this one that looks like it got a little bit of water on it, so I'll just make sure that's not part of the frame. I'll take my shim out, swapping my plates. And then I can just grab this die and I can cut the outer frame. Okay. Run that through my die cutting machine. All right. Got to put my piece of gold cardstock back in my little storage pocket. Oh, I'll just let that sit there. And now I'm going to do the outer frame. Let's just make sure I've got my card cut to the right size. Who knows, because I'm pretty sure I cut this cardstock myself. Looks like it's going to be pretty close. So I'm going to do just the same thing I did before. I'm just going to do a little line of glue right along the edge and hope that the frame will catch all of the glue. I can hear the kitties downstairs in the kitchen. Has anyone seen Sika in the chat tonight? I don't know if she's going to be in the chat or if she will see this, but I wanted to say if you guys want to send some cards to me to send to Sika, I will send them to her. She lost her kitty last week. And yeah, so just like sympathy cards for losing her kitty would be good. And I think it'd be really fun if there were just a bunch of cards. So if you send cards to me at my UPS box that is listed in the video description, still put my name on it, but inside, you know, in your card, write a note to her, and then I'll open it and I'll be able to see that it's for her. So anyway, that is true. Betsy, she could be watching and not chatting. Sika, sorry I outed you. We just want to give you cards. Okay, this was a good choice. Ooh, I love that. I wish it could be like popped up a little bit. I guess I could cut a bunch of those frames, but I'm not going to worry about it. But I am going to put glue on the outer edge of that frame so that that's what will be behind the vellum. And I'll have to put my paperweight down to really hold it in place. Oh my word, these cats, they are going all over the kitchen down there. Okay, that looks about right. So I'm just going to put my paperweight on it and just let that sit there for a moment. I'm now noticing it's not straight. I could probably still peel it up. Oh, do I dare? I just want it to move just a little bit. There we go. Okay, stay there. A boy kitty. Okay, it does look like a wall painting. Like it would be like matted and it's got a frame and all that. Love it. Okay, so let's look at the original that I was kind of recreating. What color is Sika's cat? Kind of multicolor. White, black, brown, Norwegian forest cat. Okay. All right. I love that. I was afraid that the vellum wouldn't be enough to like block out the background so you could read the grading, but that worked out really well. Okay, so that's, you know, it was kind of a combination of these two cards, like this card plus this card equals this card. There we go. Ta-da! All right, I'm gonna call it a night, and I'm gonna do a quick spiel for those watching the edited replay. Hopefully I can get an edited replay up this week. I did not even do one for last week. I've been so busy. I'm still very busy. I've been finishing up my May release, my designing it, so yeah, it's been a crazy day. Anyway, all right, spiel for those watching the edit replay. So here is the finished card for tonight. I love how that turned out. I love the like kind of intricate pops of gold. It's kind of like I took this card and we have this one. So it's kind of a combination of those two card designs. I love that. I mean, I'm sad that the purple and yellow flower is a little bit obscured, or completely obscured really, but all of these around the outer edge still look lovely. So I think it's just super pretty. I think this watercolor background, I think it turned out even better than this one. So kind of just goes to show that, you know, maybe if you like a card, make it twice and it might turn out a little bit different. Kind of interesting. Thanks so much for watching. I will be back on Wednesday at, I think I've scheduled it for 3 p.m. Mountain Time in the afternoon for a live mail call. Please come back and join me. I'm going to be opening the mail, and the theme for February was coloring. So I'm expecting so many amazing cards. You all like knocked this theme out of the park last year in 2024. I had to repeat it in 2025. So we're going to have some amazing cards. I just know it. Come and join me on Wednesday afternoon to watch that. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you guys next time. Okay. All right. I've got some, let's see. Is my finishing touches stamp set still coming soon? Yes, it's coming out in April. So a month from now. Oh, is it at 7? I have to check. I thought I did mail call in the afternoon. Nope, it's at 3. But let's see, Lola, it looks like you're in my premium community, and we do have a 7 o'clock member live on Thursday at 7. So that's probably what you're thinking of. Oh, thank you, Cairo. And thank you, Shelly. That's so great. If you have a question that I missed, I was pretty focused on the card, so I probably missed a lot, and you're still here and you'd like your question answered, please repeat it. I'm scrolling up. Let's see her. Scrolling up to see if I caught any, or if I missed any questions. Oh, Nerdy Girl says, this has been the best possible way to end my workday. I'm right there with you. It's a nice relaxing time. All right, let's see. Oh, that's so sweet, Caro. She says, I was just talking to my sister this AM, or sister, this AM, about how beautiful your collections are and how much we love them. That's so sweet. Thank you. I love that. That is also true, Andrea. Maybe Lola has a different time zone. So maybe she's many hours ahead of me and it would be 7 p.m. for her. Who knows? Let's see here. Daphne says, looks like framed art. Yeah, I really like this one with kind of like that wider frame on the outside. I really love that. Shai says, I got Neenah's 65-pound paper and I have no idea how I made that mistake. Is there anything I can use it for? Can I color on it? Yeah, I think you could color on it. Go for it. I don't know that I'd use Copics. I think that might be a little too thin. But if you do any like, what's the word? Like storage, and you need paper just to go inside the storage pocket, you could use that for it. 65-pound paper is still, it's still good, but it's not like super heavy like an 80-pound would be. Yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions for her, you could always like glue it together. That's not a bad idea. Color on it, but then you're gonna like adhere 2 sheets together so that it's much thicker, and then maybe even die cut that, and then it'll really squish them together. You could do that. Okay, I'm gonna close up for the night. I am exhausted. Let me tell you, that daylight savings, more like daylight, the clock's gonna kill me. I'm being very superfluous, exaggerating. But for real, do we need daylight savings? I am all for like, let's just pick a time and stick with it. I don't like this back and forth. So anyway, yikes. I mean, the cats love it because, you know, they get fed a little earlier. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea, Lori. Lori says you could do some gel prints on it. That's great. Yeah, you could do that. Good for layering. Yeah, you could do what Jennifer does with her white cardstock, and she'll do it instead of using like a foam tape to adhere things together. She just cuts the die cut like multiple times and then stacks them. Or like if I was going to have this center panel be popped up, you could just cut that panel multiple times and then it's popped up and you don't have to put any foam on it. You could do that too. Yeah, daylight savings. It's brutal this year. I don't know why it's hitting me so hard this year, but it's crazy. I mean, I don't mind this particular, like, you know, having it be this time. I just don't like the switching back and forth. You know, that's what I don't like. Once I'm used to it, I'm good. But anyway, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I'll update the video description with more specific supplies for what I use, like the specific colors of ink and, you know, things like that. If I can track down this vellum, I totally will. It's an amazing vellum. It's super thick. I love it so much. In fact, I might have to suggest to Greg over at Concord and Ninth. I'm like, Greg, you need to sell this really thick vellum. Maybe if you can source it, we can get it so you can buy sheets of it, because it's amazing. It's so thick. Like, I don't like regular vellum. I feel like I need to like adhere 2 sheets together to make it so that it's just barely opaque enough to just, you know, disguise what's behind it. But this one is nice and thick. It's really great. Anyway, I hope you all have a lovely Monday evening, or wherever, what time of day it is, wherever you live. Our friend that was from South Africa was, you know, it was the middle of the night for them, and they weren't even starting their day yet. So I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the day or beginning of the day wherever you live. And I will see you guys next time. I'll see you on Wednesday for mail call at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. I hope I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.